Thank you, Mitali. Namaskar to all. Respected Director of the Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities. First of all, I thank the Manavrachna University family, especially Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities, the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication for organizing such program and inviting me as the guest to deliver international expert lecture on Bharatavarshiya communication. It was my privilege to visit Manavrachna University few years ago. I had been there during an international conference where I delivered my keynote speech, and it comes as a privilege for me to address you and other distinguished learners, scholars and professors. I can see them from across India. So when we talk of Bharatavarshiya communication, the word, the terminology Bharatavarshiya itself should be treated well. Many people equate Bharatvarsha and modern day India as synonymous, but that is not the fact. When we see from the location of Nepal, let us say others may see from Bangladesh or Pakistan and so on, the difference is quite visible. Whereas Bharatvarsha was never a political entity, it was always a cultural entity. India and in ancient time there were so many other states as political entities. Nepal obviously was a political entity at that time as well, and now also it exists as independent sovereign state, political entity. So present day India comprises so many states that existed in the history, but currently they are subsumed within this nationality called Indian nationality. So the very first thing when we deal such things, such scholarly things, we need to distinguish between them. And when we say Bharatavarshiya communication, we refer to the communication scholarship developed in this geo-cultural location. Obviously both India, present day India and present day Nepal are inheritor of this rich tradition. So when we start discussing about Bharatavarshiya communication, we should acknowledge that this is not any body of knowledge, any branch of knowledge that would consist of just one kind of insights or one kind of theories or one kind of paradigm. It's like a world itself. So there are different theories, there are different philosophical traditions, there are different dharmic traditions, there are different cultures, but coexisting and collaborating since time immemorial. So whenever we say Bharatavarshiya communication, we should not assume that there would be only one theory and there would be just one model that we could refer as Bharatavarshiya communication theory or Bharatavarshiya communication model. Just like it would be wrong to assume universality of any Western communication theory or communication model. It would be wrong to assume universality of any communication theory or model developed from this geocultural location. So the world is diverse, so is Bharatvarsha. When we see our countries, we see diversity in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of customs, in terms of rituals and so on. Since communication is at the base of every enterprise by human being, so there should be different communication theories and accordingly different communication models to explain different communication contexts. But unfortunately, when this discipline called communication was institutionalized in the modern time, it was institutionalized in such context where diversity was not considered an asset. So they had that monolithic, or let us say monocultural point of view, not multicultural. So whenever this discipline was institutionalized, the scholarship from the West, even in the West, a particular type of scholarship was recognized, that was incorporated, and universality of certain communication theories or models were assumed. But in due course of time, scholars from the West as well as from the East realized that communication is such a diverse thing, such a diverse process, that it cannot be limited within a particular paradigm or particular worldview or particular theories and models. Since people internalize, people practice, and people theorize communication from different perspectives, based on their different contexts, there should be a very wide scope for theorizing communication. Then came the very concept of non-Western communication theories and the very concept of de-Westernization, all these things. So the very first phase in the case of communication was, we can say, Westernization, taking some Western theories, some Western insights, let us say from ancient Greece, or some research from modern Western society, and trying to generalize that and assuming that that would explain communication context of whole societies in the world. So when countries like India, like Nepal, China, and so many others, they were institutionalizing communication discipline, or let us say allied subjects like mass communication, media studies, or journalism, they had chosen for very easy option. Whatever books were available, whatever curricula were already there, they just copied that, and that was further reinforced through our universities and training institutions and so on. But when in the West itself, let us say particularly in the US itself, when they realized that communication should not be limited to Western context only, Western communication theories and models, they have limitations inherent to them. The scholarship should be widened, and it should be multicultural, it should be, let us say, multidisciplinary, and multi-paradigm should be allowed within it. Then they started viewing beyond the West, like Bharatavarshiya, like China, like Japan and Africa, and so on. So this very concept of de-Westernization, it critiqued or it questioned the Western domination in the field of communication theory. The first phase was to take some ancient text from here and make it target of deconstruction, and have some new perspective on communication that was not there when the scholarship was just limited to the Western theories and models. But later on, when scholars from different countries, including Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, and so many other countries, when they came up, they also started contributing for this communication discipline. Then further realization came that de-Westernization also insufficient. So the Eastern societies, let us say any society, should not be viewed only in comparison to or in contrast to Western location. Rather than indigenous insights should be allowed, and the communication discipline should go for more original theories and models. And while such broader concept was accepted in the academic fraternity of communication, there was more chances for new research from different geocultural locations. Here comes our works. By terming it our works, I am referring to not only my works, but so many other scholars have joined hand for these things. For example, Aditya Shukla, now Dr. Aditya Shukla, he completed PhD in yoga philosophy and communication theory. That was interdisciplinary research, and he did it from Deva Sanskriti University, and I happened to taken the responsibility of supervising him. So before him, my work was from Natya Shastra, from Vakyapadiya, from Mimamsa philosophy. Most of you may know Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa and Vedanta. These are called mainstream Vedic philosophies. And I took Mimamsa philosophy and communication theory and conducted interdisciplinary research and theorized communication from Mimamsa philosophical perspective. So following this footstep, Dr. Aditya Shukla completed from yoga philosophical studies. It is my honor to share one more information with you that very recently one research scholar completed PhD research on non-verbal communication in Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. Again, I happen to be one of the experts to supervise him, and that is from Nepal Sanskriti University. So my own work from Natya Shastra, from Vakyapadiya, in combination of which came the Sadharanikaran model of communication, then Sanchar Yoga theory, and as I mentioned, from the Mimamsa philosophical perspective, there has been another theorization and another communication model has been built. So other scholars, let us say some from Sri Lanka, they have worked a lot from Vedanta perspective, some have worked from Buddhist perspective, and now we can say there is a substantive work on communication theorization from Bharatavarshiya perspective. So by giving all these examples, what I am telling you is that when we say Bharatavarshiya communication theory, we should not assume that there is only one theory or there should be only one theory. Just like Bharatvarsha is such a diverse entity, such a diverse geocultural location, there is scope for so many communication theories. For instance, what Sadharanikaran model of communication explains. Let us take that example. Sadharanikaran model of communication explains how Sahridayata, let us say commonness or oneness, is possible despite diversities and differences in the society. We have very large diversity in terms of language, in terms of culture, in terms of even we have Jat, we have Jati, we have Varna, so many things. We have different communities and such a diverse tradition, such a diverse rituals. But people have been communicating since millennia, let us say. Even we can say since time immemorial, people have been communicating. Despite all these diversities, or even some would like to take this as differences, people have been communicating very effectively. We can see similarities. We can see oneness in terms of dharma, in terms of let us say, our rituals, in terms of so many folklores. Yeah, the language may be different, but for example, Sri Rama and Sita and Hanumanji, they all are worshipped in a particular way, in similar ways across Bharatavarsha. Or let us say, the very concept of Advaita Vedanta. People might have used folklores, people might have used poems, lyrics, yeah, some drama, let us say painting, puppetry, so many things. So we can see tangible diversities in various terms. But if we go to the core, there is uniformity in the message as well. So the society is functioning. We have such a developed civilization which has, let us say, connected continuity with Vedas. Yeah? The civilization has its root to Vedic civilization, and so many other things have been added here. So many migrants have come to Bharatavarsha from different parts of the world in different times, but all of them were integrated. It is a matter of perception. When one has a perception of, let us say, conflict, then they would emphasize on the differences. But when one has the perspective of integration, then they can see, despite all these diversities, even people would not understand each other's language, but they have so many things in common, and the civilization is still a living civilization. If we compare from other civilizations, Maya, Inca, Aztec, and so many others, they are either just on the books or they are just in the museums. But our civilization, it is still a living civilization. We have so many things that was there, even let us say 10,000 years or 7,000 years or 5,000 years ago. For instance, in Kathmandu, we have Indradhojothan, which is mentioned in Veda, and that Indradhojothan was stopped in some part of the let us say India 5,000 years ago, when there happened that Govardhan Parvati incident. But here it is still being observed every year. So how older traditions are there, we can see. So what made that possible? That is, there was some effective communication mechanism, and the effective communication mechanism always demands some theory behind it. So for political system, for economic system, for educational system, for let us say socio-cultural system, for all these, our society, our civilization must have very effective communication practices, and that practices should be enriched by theories. So the concept of separate communication discipline may be contribution of the Western universities, but all the insights for that, all the practices we can see here in our tradition. For instance, Natya Shastra. If we go to Natya Shastra, then we can see how deep insights are being incorporated there for let us say verbal communication. And the modern communication discipline has different segments of non-verbal communication, different types of non-verbal communication. Let us say all these types, if we have them in front of us and we would like to take them as checklists, and then we compare them from the insights that we find in Natya Shastra, then we can see the insights in Natya Shastra is much more sophisticated than the modern findings on non-verbal communication. So such a highly developed insights we can find in that text. If we go to let us say Vakyapadiya, then we can see such things that are realized only after the development of reader response theories, or let us say polysemic theories developed in the West. But that was there in a text which was written 2000 years ago. So the most important thing we should consider is that communication discipline, though in the modern time it has been borrowed from the West, though the then professors, the then teachers, the then scholars opted just to implement what they got from the curricula of the Western universities, we had, or we still have, insights for communication that should be reviewed, that should be reanalyzed in certain cases, that should be reinterpreted, that should be relocated in some cases. But if we do all these things, we can have different communication theories and different communication models. So why to have all these? It is not just that. Since Westerners developed different communication theories and models, we also should do. That also comes when people go for identity politics. As you know, everywhere in the world, the rise of identity politics is there. So many people would think, if Americans have their own theories, why not India also having that, or why not Nepal also having that? That is one thing. But when we say that is not the decisive factor. The decisive factor is how the scholarship from here would contribute to the discipline uniquely. Yeah, how the discipline would be further enriched. So when we see from this perspective, then we can see different dimensions that we can contribute for communication discipline. For instance, the very concept of spiritual communication. Yeah, we can explore lots of things from our ancient texts and our, let us say, cultural practices as well, our rituals as well. When we see this let us say sustainable development and the communication required for that, how to feel engaged with this universe, with this earth. We are from the tradition when we say Mata Bhumi Putru Aham Prithibhya. So if we see Bhumi Sutta like that, so we communicate even with the plants. We communicate with the let us say sky. Yeah, humanism is not the limitation here. In the Western context, they have come up with this humanism, which is quite good. So after violence, after conquering so many other part of the world, after subjugating them, after looting different societies, different countries, now they have realized that this is not the way. We should have humanism. That is good. But if we say from the perspective of Veda, from the perspective of Buddha, let us say from the perspective of Tirthankara, our sahridayata, our karuna, our love extends beyond human being, not only living beings, but what is considered non-living things as well. So from this perspective, if we want new perspective for the newer world, then obviously there should be insights from our own location. So if we see the changing environment of human societies, we can see that different societies in the West, they were made up of mostly particular ethnic group. So in the political science, they had the concept of nation state, but due to migration, due to let us say this cooperation and collaboration with rest of the world, now Western societies also have become multi-ethnic, multicultural, multilingual like us. So they do not have that experience how to engage in communication in multicultural setting. They are just learning for that. But we have experience for such thing since, let us say, thousands of years. So here we can have something very useful for the contemporary world. So we need to rethink ourselves. We need to revisit our own resources. If we do that, we can see there are very rich dialogical traditions in our society. So from the Vedic text as well. So when we see even in the Vedic Samhita, then there are dialogues. If you take Upanishad, this is essentially dialogical. If we go for Jaina text, if we go for Buddhist text, we can see that. So we have rich tradition of that, and not only one singular tradition. Here I am emphasizing. If we say, let us say, we have got Sadharanikaran model of communication, so this is it. We will term this as Hindu model of communication, the Hindu model of communication, or the Bharatavarshiya model of communication. Then this is also insufficient. This is also another trap. This is an example. This explains the communication practices, communication ethos of our society. But this is not the only thing. For instance, let us say the society has to follow certain rules and regulations. The society has to pass values from generation to generation. In Sadharanikaran model of communication, the major thing is how to sustain the equilibrium, how to make communication possible in diverse situation, in diverse context. But in certain areas, there needs hierarchy. For example, in statecraft, you need hierarchy. If we say Sadharanikaran model is the only model of communication in our society, then that would not explain the hierarchical functioning of the let us say political structure. There we would have another model, and that would be different for republic. That would be different for, let us say, highly authoritative society where a king is supreme. Maybe Kautilya's Arthashastra would be a source for that. But for such state where the Rajanyas are there, Rajkartaraha, so many Rajakartaraha are there. Maybe Aitareya Brahmins would be referred for that, or maybe Buddhist texts, contemporary to Buddha himself, should be appropriate for that. So when we would like to analyze the personal growth, intrapersonal communication, or prologue, monologue, in that case, maybe yoga philosophy and communication insights from that tradition would be mostly relevant. So when we take Mimamsa philosophy, if we see theorization of communication from Mimamsa philosophy, that is the outcome of my PhD work. There, the major concern is how Sabdi Bhavana is turned into Arti Bhavana. What is Sabdi Bhavana? Something in my mind. What is Arti Bhavana? The persuasion in the mind of another person. If we are engaged in communication parties, we become communicating parties, and the success of the communication here is ensured with the karma fulfilled as intended by the communicator. In the case of Sadharankarma model, the intent of communication is to have oneness. We feel it. Sahridayata, Samana Hridaya, having common sympathetic heart, to be successful to communicate what emotions we have. The same bhava should be experienced as corresponding rasa. But in terms of Mimamsa philosophical communication theorization, the intent is different. There, the success would be measured by whether the activities, the karma intended by the sender is fulfilled by the receiver or not. Because as you know, karmeti mimamsa. So, if we analyze from Sankhya perspective, that would be different. If we analyze from the perspective of Mahavira, it would be different. So, Bharatavarshiya society does not have only one standard communication behavior for everything. Communication within home and communication outside would be different. There is one very fine concept in Bangla, Ghar and Bahir. Ghar means home, Bahir means outside. Yeah? The space within the home is not the same as compared to the space outside of home. So, how we communicate within the home, that will be obviously different from how we communicate in the public places. If we really want to be enriched with communication insights from our civilization, from our texts, we need to go to such disaggregated aspects as well. Yeah, it is not sufficient to have just one communication theory or model and then saying this is it. Yeah, if you would have listened to me, let us say some years ago, then my emphasis would be, let us say, quite similar to de-Westernization. Yeah, critiquing the Western communication theories and models, and then trying to see our own resources. But later on, the emphasis was shifted to reorientation. In reorientation, what we would do here, not only with reference to other location, let us say the West, but primarily looking inward, primarily taking the, let us say, primary data from our own location, and then having theorized communication from that indigenous location and indigenous perspective. I think we have come to this level. Now, we should not be limited to only 1, 2, 3 or 4 communication theories and models developed by researchers, developed by theorists from the Bharatavarshiya location. Yeah? Okay, instead of Western scholars, now we have our own scholar, yeah, Dr. Adhikari, and then feeling happy for that. That would not be sufficient. This should be taken just as an example. And there are so many other resources to theorize communication. For instance, how the concept of space is viewed in Tamil Nadu, that would be obviously different from that of, let us say, Odisha, and that would be different from that of Haryana. So we can have the ethnographic studies for that. We can have surveys. We can have focus groups. We can conduct case studies, and the vast resource wherein I'm working, since many years, the ancient texts. Yeah? Even the same Natya Shastra can be re-researched. So many things are there. But one should have the communication eye. Sometimes we have very reductionist approach. For instance, so many people in India, in Nepal, yeah, maybe in other countries as well, they term Narada Muni as the first journalist. When I hear such a statement, I really feel that is ridiculous. Yeah? In the name of finding something similar to the modern era, we have derogated Narada Muni. Yeah, Narada Muni is not a journalist. Journalism is a prestigious profession. That is another thing. Journalism has very important role in the society. To be a journalist is good thing. But when you drag another person from another location and try to picturize himself as journalist inappropriately, then that does not represent respect for him. Journalism is a different thing. Yeah, what Narada Muni did was a different thing. If you would term him as a communication scholar, then you can study, you can conduct research on his communication practices, and you can generalize that, you can theorize that, and you can have theories from his communication, or you can have communication strategies developed for contemporary society from his point of view. But straightly telling him as a journalist, that is inappropriate. Yeah. Likewise, there are so many other things. We have this tendency. So many people in our society, whenever they see something, they will say, "Oh, वो तो हमारे शास्त्रों में पहले से ही था." So that does not work every time. We should have this research approach, this communication approach. Even if something is there, we should have reliability and validity of that, and we should follow standard norm of research. Yeah, we should follow the standard norm of the, let us say, scholarly publication. Obviously, we can have our own parameters, our own paradigms. We also had our own paradigms to let us say examine the worthy works, which are very qualified works. We can revive that, but until and unless we have that, we should go by the let us say so-called global standard. I am telling two things simultaneously. One, questioning what is being accepted as global, but still trying to have mastery over that. Otherwise जैसे कहा जाता है ना, वो the fox could not have the grapes, and only then he said it was sour. We don't know how to conduct the research properly. Only then we would look here and then claim we have come up with something, then that would not be acceptable. The ideal situation would be to know how the contemporary universities, contemporary journals, standard journals, recognized journals, they apply the styles, the methodologies, and then also trying to revisit our own, trying to let us say re-establish our own research methodology as well. That is very crucial. For the time being, it would be very important for the communication discipline as well as for us especially for the young scholars. There is vast scope for this. You learn the research methodology, you know the international standard, and then you take data from here. Yeah, qualitative data, quantitative data, and then come up with communication theorization. It is not necessary that all people would have communication theory built. All people would have communication models would build. Yeah, if there is something that would be certainly done, that should be done. There should be aim for high. So every scholar in the communication discipline, just like in others, what is the highest achievement? The highest achievement would be to be acknowledged as a theorist. It is really rewarding thing. It is quite respectable thing. So that should be aimed. But how do we start? Yeah, to start, first we should have mastery. We should have expertise over research methodology and all these peer review process. Yeah, reliability check, yeah, validity check. All these things should be obviously there. Most importantly, we can look into our society. We can look into our ancient texts, and we can have communication theories and models. It is not that one person made Sadharanikar model of communication, yeah, another person made theorized communication from yoga philosophical perspective. Then all the avenues were stopped. It is not that. This is just the beginning. There are scopes for so many other communication theories and models, because communication theories, what they do, they systematically describe, explain, and predict about the communication process. And the communication process happens differently in different contexts. Classroom communication is certainly different from communication between the farmers. Yeah, it would be certainly different from the communication in the, let us say, Kumbh setting. We have these Kumbh Melas. Yeah, you can see huge number of people coming together, and the pattern of communication there would be certainly different from the communication pattern for election campaigns. So I'm taking just a few examples. We have different contexts here. We have different communication environments here, and we should have many communication theories and many communication models. Yes, obviously, today's concern is having them from Bharatavarsha, having them from our practices, our day-to-day activities, our culture, our rituals, yeah, all these things, and from our ancient text. Yeah, we can have, we can analyze Vedas from communication perspective. We can analyze Upanishads from communication perspective. We can analyze Tripitakas, Agama Shastras of Jaina tradition, and so many others from communication perspective. Just like a political scientist would view the world from the perspective of political science, just like an economist would view the whole world from the point of view of economics, just like that. We communication scientists, we should and we tend to view this world from communication perspective, and for that the theoretical framework can be different. We have very rich tradition, just like I mentioned the 6 systems of philosophy from here: Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. And we have Buddhist philosophy, Jaina philosophy, Charvaka philosophy, and so many other latter-day philosophical schools. So we can have those. We can conduct research from communication perspective, and the findings would enable us to understand the society in a better way. So Bharatavarsha is reservoir of knowledge. Yeah, we have thousands of ancient texts is still alive, is still available to study. And with the advent of all these technologies, it has become much easier to access the texts. For instance, 50 years ago, the number of people who had access to Vedas, if we compare that to the number of people who have access to that today, the number today is very high, and it would be high. It is so in case of other texts as well, and this opportunity is here. The West, not only in the context of communication discipline, in the context of other disciplines as well, it is expecting some significant contribution from non-Western location, including our location. So, there was day when they attacked non-Western societies. Yeah, there were colonies, all these things. Still, the struggle would go for, let us say, economic, technological, and other superpower. Yeah, but in the domain of knowledge, a tremendous opportunity has been opened up for us. Our strength is we know what contributions has been made from the West. All the theories, models, other insights developed by them, we can read them. In fact, we have read a lot of them, and we can do that. And we have something that others don't have. If we dig into that, if we are connected to that, if we go to our original resources, then certainly we will be more, let us say, insightful, more powerful, yeah, and we will be contributing more for the communication discipline as well. So the example of Sadharanikara model of communication, the example of theorization from Mimamsa philosophical perspective, from yoga philosophical perspective, and Advaita Vedanta, Buddhism, and so on, it all encourages us to come ahead and revisit them and have something very significant as our contribution to the communication discipline. I think I have come to the end of what I intended to present in front of you. Firstly, thank you for listening. Namaskar.
Yes, भिडियोलाई लाइक कमेन्ट र शेयर गर्न नबिर्सिनुहोला। फेरि यस्तै रोचक भिडियोहरू हेर्नका लागि यस च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गरेर घण्टी बजाइदिनुहोला।